throughout history, gang, all fiat currencies fail. All of them. Every single one of them throughout time has failed. There's not a single currency that has technically lasted more than 70, 80, 90 years tops. Is every single time this has happened in history. Gold and silver have always been there in between those currencies. People switch their preference from the fiat currencies to gold and silver coins, something of real intrinsic value. And then you have to remember now, even the powers that be in the countries where the fiat has failed use gold to measure the old currency against the new.
If you're invested in silver or gold, you need to pay close attention to the laws of the land. It can have a major impact on your ability to stack and how you can use your silver and gold as legal tender. Today, we have a big update. We're joined by Mr. Patrick Holland from the Missouri Freedom Initiative. He's going to let you know, are you in a state, one of the 15 states that currently have gold and silver legal tender legislation pending? Pat, welcome to Ron's Basement.
Ron, thank you so much for having me back. I don't see, Smitty, I see. So he's kind of behind your ear there. Okay, good deal. Yeah. Smitty, you doing okay, buddy?
Smitty is the silver bear who has a blindfold on that says $85. Yes. And when silver hits $85, Mr. Pat Holland will be here to take the blindfold off of Smitty, the bear.
You betcha. So he can see. And Ron, thank you so much for having me back. Actually, this is one of those really, really important episodes that we'll be doing. And whereas last year I was kind of informing folks of what was going on in the States, I need to do the same thing again this year. And I do have a little stack of papers here. Okay. I'm going to be going through each state quickly, if you don't mind, just so people know what states and what the bill numbers are in their states.
Okay, and so we're gonna let people know, our viewer who's joining us, are they in a state with this legal tender legislation pending? And at the end, we'll talk about why it's so important. But I think everyone's dying of curiosity to hear you get through this list, Pat.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to start with Florida. And that's a shout out to our good friends with the Citizens for Sound Money. That's one of the states they're running. So in Florida, there is a bill, and the writing is terribly small, so forgive me here. But they're basically going for a depository there, and that is House Bill 697. 697. I feel like I'm playing bingo. But that is in Florida, guys. If you are in Florida, please go to citizensforsoundmoney.com, I believe is their web address. Please help out with the effort down there. That's a big one. Florida, I'm really, really, really hoping that they get something really good done. That would be very, very good for the liberty movement.
And let me throw something in on Florida that I found very interesting. If Florida were its own country, it would be the 15th largest country in the world, measured by the size of the economy. So it is significant. Yeah,
you bet. It is a big state. There's a lot of folks in Florida too. So if you're one of those folks, please get on that bandwagon and help push that legislation through. Next one, also having to do with Citizens for Sound Money, is the New Hampshire bill, and that is HB 1246. This is an interesting bill that would allow employers to pay employees with gold and silver as part of their compensation. So that's what's going on in New Hampshire. Once again, HB, by the way, HB stands for House Bill. You might hear from me at some point in SB, and that would be a Senate bill. So that's what those mean. So the New Hampshire, once again, HB 1246, gang. If you're in New Hampshire,
Pat, let me interject something there, and that's Citizens for Sound Money. I know is involved with that one. Yes. I also know Daniel Tinkham, who's a regular guest on our show, lives in New Hampshire, and he was there testifying as well. Also, Adam Van with Alpine Gold Exchange. A lot of people working very hard for this cause in New Hampshire.
Yep. And that, by the way, that's a really interesting one. And in fact, Senator Eigel in Missouri actually has this incorporated into his bill as well. So, and we'll get into that later. So that's what's going on in New Hampshire, gang. The next state is New Jersey. And actually, New Jersey's interesting because I think their bill is done and it's waiting for a governor's signature. So this one is Assembly Bill. This one's got a different nomenclature. Assembly Bill AB 5294. But I think this one's done, and it's to remove sales tax from gold and silver. Once again, gang, seemingly a small deal, but extremely important in in effect, because you're moving to gold and silver as legal tender. You cannot have tax on legal tender. So that's in New Jersey. Okay. Next state is West Virginia. And this one is House Bill 4343. And this one is specifically to make gold and silver legal tender in the state of Virginia, or state of West Virginia. Forgive me, guys. It's a little early in the morning and I haven't had enough coffee yet. Okay. And I'm going as fast as I can. We've got our Missouri bill, and that is actually, we've got two of them, but I'm going to concentrate on one. So in Missouri here, the bill that the Missouri Freedom Initiative, we are fighting for, along with many other grassroots, we're getting a lot of help. And that is Senate Bill SB 735. But the bill we're concentrating on right now is the House bill. And it is what we call a companion bill. It's an exact copy. And that one is HB 1955. And that is kind of a whole enchilada kind of bill. We got a lot going on in that bill. So I'm not going to go into that right now. We'll do that in another episode where we talk about our bill and where we're at with our bill. In fact, maybe we'll do it at the end of this. Okay, next one, Indiana. You folks in Indiana, you guys also have a bill. And this one is to establish legal tender and a bullion depository. Indiana, jump on this. This is a good bill. It's HB 1400 in Indiana. HB 1400. Once again, it feels a little bit like bingo today. Okay, so now we're going to Kentucky, and Kentucky's bill number is SB 105, and they have a companion bill in the House as well. So I need to let you know that one. That one is House Bill, or HB 101. And that is also going for legal tender status for gold and silver in the state of Kentucky.
Okay, bingo.
Yeah, bingo. You got bingo?
Yeah, I want you said what? I win 2 American Silver Eagles. Bingo. I'll bring my card.
Gosh darn it.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Someone's going to have to pay up on that one.
What I'm envisioning is everyone has a map of the United States, and they're coloring in the states as you're going through them, Pat. This is critical. Idea. This is critical because silver and gold investors, I mean, these laws matter. Like they matter to the average person who may have some physical silver, physical gold. They matter on a much larger scale as well. And again, maybe we'll touch on that more at the end. I'll let you get back to calling your bingo.
Okay,
numbers.
Gotcha. Next state is Kansas. And Kansas's bill number is SB 303. And that also is to make gold and silver legal tender in the state of Kansas. So once again, if you're in Kansas, SB 303. Hey, guys, we'll talk in the end of this on what you can do if you're in one of these states to support these bills. Next one is Utah. Utah, you say, Pat. Utah's already got it all. They got it all going on. Utah is actually expanding the Species Legal Tender Act. They're the first ones to actually dabble in that specie, define what specie is, what transactable gold and silver is. So we give them a shout out for that, because a lot of states have jumped on the bandwagon of that definition specie to include goldbacks. So this is an important one. So if you're in Utah, it is HB 348. That is the bill number. And once again, this is actually an expansion of the Specie Legal Tender Act. Okay, next state is Nebraska. And Nebraska is eliminating capital gains taxes on gold and silver, and also in the same bill, rejecting CBDCs. And we'll talk about that in a second. Their bill number is LB, Legislator Bill, LB 1305. And that's basically, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I just want to tell everyone there's still 5 more states. So if your state has not yet been called, you still have a chance that you'll get some
You
good
still have a
news.
chance for bingo.
Right, a bingo.
Okay. So yeah, support the folks in Nebraska that are trying to get that bill passed. If there's no folks you know of, you can start it yourself. That's support. Okay, next state is Georgia. Georgia is, let's see, taking a step to eliminate capital gains taxes on gold and silver specie. Their bill number is, let's see, House Bill 895.
If you're looking to buy gold, silver, or platinum, do yourself a favor and check out Pimbex, the online precious metals bullion dealer and sponsor of Ron's Basement. I was a happy customer before they offered to support the channel. You'll find they have the best prices, quality, and service. I think Pimbex is best, and you will too. And be sure to tell them that you're from Ron's Basement.
So that's, let's see, in Georgia. Okay, next state, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is working to create a relationship with the Texas Bullion Depository. That's what their bill's about. This is exciting stuff. Okay, this one's got a bill number of SB 2030. So SB 2030 in Oklahoma, and basically to set up a working relationship with the Texas Bullion Depository. All right, next state, Hawaii. Hawaii is, let's see, is trying to exempt sales taxes from purchase of retail purchases of gold and silver. Their bill number in Hawaii is HB 1724. Okay, on to second to the last state, Wisconsin. Wisconsin was doing stuff last year as well. So Wisconsin is eliminating sales tax on gold and silver bullion, and it looks like that's what they're doing, but it always starts there. If you got sales taxes, their bill number is SB 33, an easy one to remember in Wisconsin. SB 33 to eliminate sales taxes on gold and silver. All right, and is there a drum roll? Is there any way we could get some kind of drum roll going on?
This is your last chance. This is your last chance, and it's a serious matter.
Yeah, I know it is a serious matter. I'm looking for some. Let's see.
You know what? Here, Pat, hold on. I got something we can do. I'll pull out the gong.
Okay, there we go. The gong.
All right. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
Finally.
Okay. All right. So the last state that we actually rang the gong for is Iowa.
Iowa.
Okay. So this is a bill to, let's see, establish state issue gold or silver transactional currency. This is a legal tender bill. And this one is SF, and let's see. That's correct. SF 2108 in Iowa.
Okay.
So this is to establish legal tender for gold and silver. Okay, so these are the 15 states that I know of, and I want to give a quick plug real quick, if you don't mind, Ron. Guys, most of you know I'm really, really busy, both with, my activities with the Missouri Freedom Initiative and pushing legislation through the state and working other things too, and also working a regular job. I want to give a shout out to the 10th Amendment Center and Mike Mahari for actually collating this data on their blog, the 10thamendmentcenter.com. And that makes it really easy for me to find these states. And so at any rate, a big shout out to Mike Mahari at the 10th Amendment Center for, actually just putting it all in one easy place to get to. That way, I don't have to search through state legislation, which anyone can do through Legiscan, but it is really time consuming.
Right. And I want to give you a break for a second, Pat. I want to say a couple things. Number one, if you think, I'm talking to you, the viewer right now, right, the most important part of this video, if you think that silver and gold is important in terms of getting new laws, new legislation passed, I'm going to ask you to write bingo in the comments section. And you can even say thank you to Pat Holland for all he's doing to help further these legislative efforts. Let me run through It's super high speed, the list, just so everybody can hear it one more time. We have Florida, New Hampshire, New Jersey, West Virginia, Missouri, Indiana, Kentucky, Kansas, Utah, Nebraska, Georgia, Oklahoma, Hawaii, Wisconsin, and Iowa. That's an impressive list, Pat.
It is. It is. It's important legislation. What may seem on the periphery to some people to be some kind of esoteric embrace of these old chunks of metal that that no one respects anymore is actually much, much more important than you could possibly imagine, and I can tell you why.
Well, I want to throw something in. I don't think that Russia is one of the United States, and I certainly know that the country of Zimbabwe isn't either. But just yesterday, I heard news regarding Russia and how they're using gold to basically skirt all the sanctions that are going on, that have gone on over the last few years, dealing with the United Arab Emirates, Iran, all these different countries, and using gold to skirt the. I also hear now that Zimbabwe has officially announced that they're going to basically go to a gold standard with their currency. Now, so what I want to point out is that, throughout the world, we're seeing this reemergence, because it never went completely away, but this reemergence of gold and silver becoming and not becoming, but just reclaiming its rightful place as real money. So as people are out sitting out there somewhere in the United States or anywhere in the world they may be watching, it is important that the laws where you live are conducive to you being able to use gold and silver as legal tender.
Absolutely. And once again, you touched on it, and I'm going to finish your thought for you, I think. Throughout history, gang, all fiat currencies fail. All of them. Every single one of them throughout time has failed. There's not a single currency that has technically lasted more than 70, 80, 90 years tops before it goes into a hyperinflation. And essentially, they have to switch out one currency for another to stabilize their economies. Now, everyone knows this from history, but what they may not know is every single time this has happened in history, gold and silver, particularly, both of those, not platinum or palladium in history, but gold and silver have always been there in between those currencies. People switch their preference from the fiat currencies to gold and silver coins, something of real intrinsic value. And then you have to remember now, even the powers that be in the countries where the fiat has failed use gold to measure the old currency against the new. Yeah. So this is actually part of our history, our heritage.
And if you think about this on a worldwide basis, if the BRICS and the BRICS Plus countries like Zimbabwe, if the world moves toward using gold as money, to put it in simple terms, by default, they could almost force the United States, especially with this bifurcation that we're having, the United States could be, whether they like it or not, forced to recognize a revaluation of gold and silver, for that matter.
Sure. And one thing I want to say, because this happens quite a bit, especially for people who've never gotten involved in it, the political arena before anyway, but these that we just read off today, these are state bills. These have nothing to do with the federal government. And what you can do to help, if you're in one of those 15 states, what you can do is actually call up your state representative, state senator, and support the bill. That's what you do. So for instance, I remember last year where we were talking about Texas's bill, and someone literally, and it had something to do with, basically having the bullion depository and then some kind of digital currency to represent the gold and silver. You guys remember that bill? I'm sure. Someone had emailed me and said, I have emailed Ted Cruz repeatedly, and he says he doesn't know about this and he has nothing to do with it. And I don't know what to do. Well, that's because they were emailing a federal senator as opposed to a state senator. So guys, remember, these are state bills. These have nothing to do with your federal representation. This is not in the federal government at all. So at any rate, just for those who have never gotten involved before, to help eliminate some confusion on the onset, it's just your state. It's just the state.
Yeah. and you can make a difference. Grassroots support of these bills makes a huge difference. I heard Daniel Diaz talk about, the difference between a phone call, a letter, an in-person visit. That on a state level, individual constituents can still make a huge difference.
Yep. In fact, I can tell you in Missouri, and once again, I don't have details on any grassroots supporting this stuff in any of the states, except for, of course, Daniel Diaz, having to do with, basically New Hampshire as well as Florida. But I could tell you the Missouri Freedom Initiative is here for the Missouri bill. And as you remember last year, I don't want to talk about it a whole lot because we covered it ad nauseum. We got right up to the finish line, and Dean Plocker, the Speaker of the House, was holding this bill, the silver and gold bill, as leverage to try to control the Senate. And it failed, and we lost everything at that point because basically the government was shut down for pretty much the last 2 days. So this happens in politics, but I will tell you that we're taking a different route this year. We're actually going through the House first so we can deal with Dean Plocker, in the House first and try and get it done there before we get over to the Senate. So that's why we're concentrating on House Bill 1955. But we do have a hearing in the House, and we have a date. It's February 27th. If you are in the state of Missouri, on February 27th, you can actually come and testify before the House Committee, Financial Institutions, on our silver and gold bill. So please keep that in mind. And this happens in all of these states. All of these states have hearings and committees. So be sure to check in and see if there's any hearings coming up for the bills in your state. Showing up to the Capitol and testifying in front of a committee, basically is one of the most important things citizens can do to support their silver and gold legislation. It's not enough to say, I love this bill. I like this bill. I like my bright shinies. That is not enough. Explain why you want the bill. Tell them why it's important for your state to actually have this. And
we'd like to thank our sponsor, First Mining Gold. They're a Canadian gold developer with 2 world-class projects in Canada. They also have a handful of other projects. When you total up all the gold in their resources, it comes to over 12 million ounces. They're worth checking out. I'll put a link to the company's website in the description below.
And I want to throw in for the viewer, right, whether you're in West Virginia, Missouri, Nebraska, any of these 15 states, I guarantee you that if you go to one of your state hearings on this matter, and even if you just go to be present, but if you go and maybe you say a few things, it will be a day that you will remember for the rest of your life.
it will. It will. And also, it's very important for people to actually start participating in government for other reasons, too. And that's more along the Missouri Freedom Initiative, what we do in our live streams, and trying to take back our state from the rhinos and the squishies, in other words, corporatists. But this is really important, gang. If you're here in the state of Missouri, the 27th, we have a hearing. It's at noon at the Capitol. And then also we have a knock and shock date already picked out, and that's March 11th. So on March 11th, we'll be doing yet another knock and shock operation. That's when we come to the Capitol in huge numbers and we go and talk to legislators individually. There is a rally that day too, by the way, and I'm actually going to be emceeing the rally. So hundreds and hundreds of people show up for these rallies. So people from the Freedom Caucus, people who know, like Bill Eigel. Bill Eigel will be speaking, of course. And part of this is about getting gold and silver across the finish line.
Pat, and I want to throw in, how important, again, this legislation is for anyone who's in the silver and gold community. These laws impact your ability to stack and to use your silver and gold. And I just want to add this bit of commentary as well. One of the most recurring common questions I get from viewers is, Ron, do you think that our gold and silver could get confiscated again? It's a common fear within the silver and gold community. Roosevelt confiscated gold in 33, and there's been a history. So if you think about this legislation in that context, if you're afraid that your silver and gold could somehow at some point get confiscated, wouldn't you want to get involved and support legislation that on a state by state basis will protect you and will help, protect your ability to use silver and gold even as legal tender?
Yeah. And by the way, it's great you mentioned that, because our bill, 19 HB 1955, SB 735, we have protections from confiscation in our bill. We use anti-commandeering doctrine, the 10th Amendment, to protect people's right to have gold and silver, to prevent civil asset forfeiture. In other words, confiscation of their gold and silver without due process. That's with our bill, basically it wouldn't be possible for them to confiscate in the state of Missouri. By 10th Amendment and anti-commandeering doctrine, what I mean, Ron, the federal government could come in the state of Missouri and try to confiscate, but they're not going to get any help from the Missouri government in any way, shape, or form, or any political subdivision thereof. It'd be impossible with our bill. The fines would be huge for anyone in Missouri that would help the federal government confiscate gold and silver. That includes banks.
Interesting. Well,
So,
Pat, you're go ahead.
So I think it's really important that other states consider putting an amendment on their bill, if they don't have it, to do something very similar to what we've done with ours. How do we do that? You get on Missouri's website, the House website, you download a copy of HB 1955, and you give a copy to your senator or your rep, once again, state senator or state rep, and say, do this. This is what we want to do in our state. Ours is very well thought out, very well written. And in fact, I do believe we owe a little bit of credit to Daniel with the Citizens for Sound Money, because I do believe a little bit of our language was borrowed from their bill as well. So I'll tell you what, here's the deal in legislation, gang. If you're going to write a piece of legislation, basically someone else has probably done something very similar. And if they've done a good job, steal their words. It's not plagiarism when it comes to legislation. You cannot copyright legislation in the United States of America. And so at any rate, steal from our bill. Take it. Get something good done in your state. Just like we borrowed from Texas's legislation in the past, and now we borrowed a little bit from Florida's. We've had a lot of stuff of our own, but at the same time, it's something that I want you guys to not be afraid of, because legislation cannot be copyrighted.
Sounds good. Pat, you are a fan favorite here in Ron's Basement. So on behalf of the viewer, I'll say thank you. On behalf of myself, we hope for our viewer that they hit bingo on the legal tender legislation bingo card today. But if not, I think you've very clearly explained to people some actions they can take in their state to help further the legislation. If people want to learn more about you, they go to mofree.org. Is that correct?
That's correct. mofree.org. That is our website, the Missouri Freedom Initiative. We are an organization that basically helps legislation along, but we also root out corruption and expose it, political corruption in our state, no matter where it is, whether it's your mayor or it's our governor. I mean, we expose everything that we find because, for a whole bunch of different reasons. You have to get rid of corruption in your state. This is the equivalent of draining the swamp. Basically, we're doing that in the state of Missouri. Stuff like that will probably be in the news at some point.
Fortuna Silver Mines is a global intermediate gold and silver producer. Since 2005, Fortuna's best-in-class management has delivered impressive growth and profits. Fortuna's solid financial position and operational expertise allows for performance in any precious metals price cycle and provides a foundation from which to harvest great profits in more favorable metals markets. Investing in Fortuna is an investment in quality, long-term, sustainable production of in-demand precious and base metals.
But the important thing is we don't take donations. It's everyone who wants to get involved. It's their time and it's their dime. And that way we can't be labeled as lobbyists by the very same corrupt individuals in the legislature that we're trying to expose.
Interesting. Well, you certainly qualify in my book as one of the top warriors for legal tender legislation throughout the country. Thank you, Pat. Is there anything I missed? Anything you want to touch on before we sign off?
I just want to say to everyone, if you are partaking in this, if you are helping push this legislation through, thank you. It doesn't matter what state. We need Wisconsin to get rid of that sales tax on gold and silver. So folks in Wisconsin, do what you got to do. Hawaii also taking away sales tax from gold and silver. Every single one of these bills is critical. And if you think, oh, geez, my state's not doing a big enchilada bill like Missouri is, that's okay, gang. If you have to go step by step, believe me, it's sometimes very difficult to get these things done. If you have to take the baby step of doing this before you can do that, that's okay. As long as you're heading in that direction, because it doesn't matter what state you're in. A digital centralized currency is coming our way. It's not here right now, but it is coming. And we all need protection from that. And that's what this does. So gang, let's get to work. Let's roll up our sleeves and make sure that our states are as free as humanly possible, especially when it comes to transactable currency.
Sounds great, Pat. Thank you. And we will look forward to seeing you again soon here in the basement.
You bet. Thank you for having me back, Ron. God bless you, man. See you, Smitty.